Thank
Perfect.
you, Ersie. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and I'm sure we'll get some more participants over the next few minutes. But I want to introduce Ersie Joyner, who has been kind enough to join us today. Many of you know Ersie, and those who don't, he's a huge friend to the realtor community and is always happy to share his experience and his deep background with OPD and just being a homegrown Oakland native with us and talk to us a bit about, sort of what's been going on. We're hopefully on the way out of this pandemic, and things have changed a lot over the last couple of years. And so Ersie, again, was kind enough to give us some time to kind of give us an update on things that are going on in the East Bay and give us some tips on how to stay safe out there, since I'm sure we've all heard anecdotally how things have been affecting the realtor community. So without further ado, I'll kick it over to Ersie. Thank you again for joining us. Oh, you're on mute. Ersie, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. I promise you, I promise you I'll be much better from here on out. But
we love you.
More importantly, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to the Bridge Association of Realtors for having me to come share this hour with you all. Special shout out to Jordan for the invitation. I like to call it an invitation / you're going to do this. As you guys all know, Jordan is my neighbor. We cross each other's paths. We live on a cul-de-sac. So I kind of felt like there was no way in the world I ever could say no, and we have to pass each other at least 4 times a day. But with all that said, Jordan, thank you for being the realtor you are, and more importantly, thanks for being the outstanding neighbor you are as well.
My pleasure.
For those of you on here who I personally know by face and name, hello, good afternoon. For those of you who I've seen multiple times or heard their names over phone calls with my wife, Deidre Joyner, nice to formally meet you all. I'm glad to be here today. I just briefly want to tell you a little bit about me. I have multiple jobs. My first and most rewarding job is being a husband of Deidre Joyner and being a father to Nia and Miles. My second and most difficult job is being a silent partner to Deidre Joyner Red Oak Realty Incorporated. I can tell you that putting out signs, picking up signs, understanding sewer laterals, Oakland sidewalk ordinances, escrow and terms has been a very complicated situation and learning curve for me. But my last and final job that's been most exciting in my life is actually serving the city of Oakland, which I was born and raised in, and in actuality, it's been a dream job come true. I spent almost 30 years at OPD and was honored to retire in good health and being the most decorated officer in OPD history. With that said, Jordan invited me today to kind of talk about safety tips. I kind of want to change that conversation a little bit and start actually just kind of talking about, from my perspective, what we need to worry about in terms of what's going on with dynamics in our city, our surroundings, and not only being conscious, but being present to what we're doing all the time. I can tell you that you all have one of the most overwhelming, busy, multiple-facet jobs that I've ever seen in my life. And it's very easy to become so complacent and so busy and so overwhelmed with offers, counter offers, ratifying contracts, terms, inspections, that you become so busy that you let life get in the way with life. With that said, I want to start talking about some tips and start talking about some crime numbers to set the stage. For those of you who are like Deidre, I will keep the crime numbers very specific, not too specific, and very general, so that you don't feel like you have to disclose of any of your neighborhood listings. But when we start talking about crime, the major 4 areas that are of huge concern to the community are homicides, shootings, robberies, and burglaries. For quite some time, Oakland has really led the nation in violent crime. We had a serious reduction in violent crime for roughly 7 years, and we got comfortable and complacent, and crime started going back up. To put things in perspective, so far this year, as of March 6th, there's been 17 homicides in this city. There's been 3 actually just this week. In terms of shootings, 84 people have been shot so far this year, with 8 being just this week. 168 robberies, 1,671 burglaries, and a total of crimes of over 5,100 crimes just so far for this year. When we start talking about in perspective of this crime, the best thing I can tell you guys is to be conscious and be aware of what you're doing. Our highest risk in terms of the people who are on this call are becoming victims of robbery or victims of burglary. And what I mean by being conscious is we want to do everything we possibly could do to not be a victim. And more importantly, we need to have strategies and contingency plans that if we do become a victim, how are we going to work through that victimization? How are we going to work through that incident so we end up surviving? I'm a firm believer in the concept of adult learning. So throughout this presentation and conversation, I want it to be an actual conversation. I like to talk with people instead of at them. So at any time someone has a question, input, disagreement, or they want to offer their own perspective, feel free to jump in. I have no issues with that. And in fact, I encourage it. When we start talking about what's happening here in the city of Oakland, you know, you're going to be on the move constantly. You're checking out properties, you're doing inspections, you're holding open houses. At any times, many things can happen where you're put in perspective. Suspects don't know any geographical boundaries. They don't just stay in their neighborhoods. They go out looking for people who they can victimize or cars they can break into. I can tell you throughout my law enforcement experience, the biggest issue is when we get comfortable and we leave our bags, our luggage, our computers in the car because we think it's only going to take 30 seconds to run into a store. It takes them 10 seconds to break into your car. Make sure that when you park your car, you leave nothing visible. What these criminals are doing now, especially with SUVs, they focus on SUVs, they focus on cars that have out-of-state license plates as they believe that they're rental cars and are more likely to have luggage in them. And what they're doing is they're coming up to the car, peeking in the window, either the back window or the side windows, and actually looking for items before they break the window and do a snatch and grab. One of the things to just be concerned about is making sure when you pull up to your destination, don't wait to put things in your trunk as you get to your destination. Have some forward thinking to actually store it in there in terms of just in case they're in the neighborhood watching. The biggest thing you could possibly do is trust your instincts. You know, we have God-given talents that we have a feeling when something isn't right. Don't ignore those instincts. Be aware of everything that's happening. I kind of want to talk to you guys about something that's near and dear to me, to my heart, and a big concern of mine which is open houses. You know, with social media, with all the things that are going on, individuals are using social media to highlight their open houses, the times that they're open. We have signage out all over the place, and it's almost we're driving clients to the house and also possibly driving potential suspects or perpetrators of crime to the house as well. Since we have to work our way around that, I've given Deidre some thoughts in terms of how I would like her to handle herself at an open house. And number one is be communicative. Make sure that people, your significant others, people you care about, your family, your friends, know where you are and know what your schedules are like so that if things or variances happen, we can quickly assess that something's not right. I can remember there was a time Deidre had an open house right here in the neighborhood in Redwood Heights. I was away at a training. I was driving back from the training, coming through the Tahoe area, and I get a text from her that says, "Hey, there's a guy at the house. I feel a little bit uncomfortable, just to let you know." Of course, my heart is racing. I'm 2.5 hours from home, and I start thinking to myself, excuse my language, oh shit, I don't even know where her open house is. I start scrolling through all of our messages and text messages, no open house address. I call my son and I'm like, Miles, where are you? He goes, oh, Dad, I'm just picking up Mom's open house signs. I was like, get over to the house right now. There's a man over there, makes your mom feel uncomfortable. My son, Miles, who was about 17 or 18 at the time, goes, well, Dad, what's the address? Now my anxiety level's through the roof. And then it dawns on me. I go, Miles, are the signs in your back seat? He goes, yeah. I go, look at the sign. What's the address? I've never been so mad at Deidre and Miles at the same time in my whole entire life. But with all of that said, be conscious of what you're doing. As an example, let's walk through some things as far as having an open house. We want to be warm. We want to be inviting. We don't want to have a confrontational attitude or judge people when they come into the house, but we should trust our instincts. Some things we should do prior to arrival or prior to open house is secure your jewelry. Think about what you want to be exhibited, what you want to make sure it's hidden. Second thing is introduce yourselves to the neighbors. I'm sure all of you guys do that, but make sure the neighbors know that you have an open house, that you're going to be there. They get an opportunity to see you, what you're wearing, and get a chance to meet you in a non-hostile environment or heightened awareness, where if they see something different, they can be some eyes and ears for you as well. Think about where you park your car. What are you going to do with your car keys in there? I can tell you that roughly about 6 months ago, there was an open house in Oakland. A robber came in, he robbed a realtor, took her car, then went on a multiple crime spree, got into a high-speed chase, and ended up in a shootout with the police and was killed. He got that car from an open house. So we need to start thinking about what we're doing in terms of our keys, our jewelry, our phones, making sure your phone or communication device is on you at all times when you're at the open house. Make sure your computers, your Apple notebooks and your laptops aren't visible for somebody to snatch them, and just start thinking about that kind of stuff. With that said, going back to my theory about adult learning, I kind of just want to open it up. Are there any things or pains or angst or any questions anybody has about what we discussed so far? Or more importantly, does anybody in a group want to offer any of their expertise or things that's happened to them that they can share with their colleagues to actually keep them safe as well?
Ersie, I have a question and a comment. When I do an open house, before I leave the open house, I check all the windows to make sure all the windows are locked, because people will go in and unlock the windows and come back and open them to steal the furniture or whatever. But my question really is stun guns. Are stun guns legal in the state of California? And if you see a carjacker or something, can we like stun him and zip tie him until the cops get there? I don't want to be a vigilante, but I just feel like these guys are just getting away with things that I think we can do things that aren't so hurtful, that can just at least stop something.
Okay, you brought up a couple of things I want to highlight for everybody. That is an excellent contingency plan in terms of shutting down your open house. When you go back and make sure no one's unlocked any back doors or windows to make it easy for them to assess, I think that's an excellent tool, and everybody should probably incorporate that. In terms of stun guns, it all depends. The stun gun law in California is very vague in many ways. It depends on how many volts, depends on where you bought it, depends on the actual electricity that is being exhibited from it. And then I want to be very clear when I tell you that if you see something happen, the best course of action is to call 911 and be an observer. You taking a stun gun to someone who might have a gun can never end well. And in the event that the stun gun does not work properly, or the person's able to withstand the voltage, low battery, bad stun gun, you put yourself in a position where you're going to be hurt. So my advice to you is that don't engage someone who's engaged in crime. Be an active observer, call 911. I was looking over in the chat, and I see that someone had put in there about the pizza. Please, is it Elizabeth? Please, Elizabeth, can you unmute and share with everyone your contingency plan and what you and your husband have going?
Sure. Yeah, I always make sure that my husband has the address of where I'm going, because I was in a house one day like Deirdre and felt very uncomfortable, and I was in there alone, and it was a huge house. So my husband, he always has the address, but if I call him during an open house and just say, hey, honey, order a pizza, he knows, call 911. Because I could say that in front of anybody scary or weird and hopefully get away with it. If I really want a pizza, I'll call them later.
I think that is awesome in terms of having a secret communicative device with a mechanism with people who are close to you so they know what's going on. Can you order a pizza is not aggressive in any way. And the average person listening to you would be like, hey, can I get a pepperoni as well? Just make sure that you are constantly working that out with people. You know, don't come up with an idea, devise a plan, and never talk about it. These kind of things are perishable skills and they go away. So make sure that you're constantly talking about it. Deidre tells me all the time I'm not a good listener. So she called me from an open house and told me to order a pizza. I promise you, my next call is to the pizza place, getting a spinach and mushroom deep dish pizza, and she would be very mad. Also, I saw someone put in Patricia Bennett. Do you mind talking about the locking the front door and going around the back of the house? And by the way, please keep adding to the chats. And yes, I will be calling you out.
Every open house that I do at about, if it closes at 4:30, about 4:28, I go out, I take the front A-frame down, I take the sign down that says open Sunday. I come in the house, make sure that, you know, everybody's gone. And then I lock the front door up really tight when I go around to the rest of the house to make sure that all the doors and the windows and everything else are closed, because people know it's over. And anybody who comes in that front door while you're in the back, you know, you could be a target for that. So that's something I learned in a similar course I took many years ago, and I've always practiced it.
I think that's great advice, and others should to yield to that. Todd Andrew, please let's talk about the devices that people or crooks are using now to actually track Wi-Fi and looking for signals coming from your cell phones or your computers. Please, you mind introducing that topic, and I'd be more than happy to talk about it.
Hey, Ersie, hope you're well, man. Hope you've fully recovered and everything's going well. That's all I really know is that I'd heard that criminals who are well prepared, who make a living doing this kind of thing, can detect electronic devices a lot of times because they're carrying equipment that allow them to do it. And that's all that I know.
Well, you're absolutely right. And clearly you watch a lot of CSI or have a great cable programming network. Yes, it is true. Criminals, they have a device. It's very easy to get it on the internet. And what it does is they hold it in their car. It's a handheld device, and it picks up what's emanating from your Wi-Fi or your connectivity Bluetooth devices. So it'll actually show you the device as they're passing through mall parking lots, and that's how they key on cars many times. So if you think about it, when you do lock your computer up, if you are leaving it in the car, power it all the way down so there's not emanating any type of signal to decrease the opportunity for crooks to actually get in there and pick things up. Anybody else want to offer anything as we start talking?
I could offer something. You know, sometimes you'll see people walking on the street and just not really focused on what's going on around them. And then you see somebody who's kind of walking the walk. And I would love to hear what you have to say about our energy and attitude to, you know, deter being a target.
Chrissy, I think that's a very, very important conversation, a great question and comment. And I think it's a great segue to transition to the next portion of this. I wanted to talk about outcomes. I wanted to talk about the fact that shit is going to happen, but how we manage shit happening is the difference between us surviving, us being victims, or us being able to avoid when shit happens. They have national best practices in law enforcement and the private sector on how to survive outcomes. Many of these best practices can be applied to multiple things: being robbed on the street, being involved in an active shooter situation, home invasions, but the principles are all the same and are very simple. The first principle that they talk about is being able to evacuate. And what they mean by that is if you see a situation that happens, whether it's a street robbery, whether it's someone coming into your home, whether it's someone coming up at an open house situation, being accosted on the street, evacuate means to be able to remove yourself from the situation as quickly, as safely as possible has yielded the best results to survivability. Evacuating and moving to a safe location, whether your evacuation is quiet, whether your evacuation is loud or you're drawing attention to the situation, Those are all things that are determining factors that you will have to trust your instincts. There's no concrete response to ensure that you're safe other than making sure you're not putting yourself in even more dangerous situations. The second safe outcome is what they call hiding out. You have to take in consideration that you are going to look around and you might not be able to evacuate. So my next thing I want to do is hide. And using the example of an open house, something happens, where do you want to try to hide? You know, there's plenty of hiding places in homes, but you have to take into consideration, if you go and you lock yourself in the closet, you're really stuck in that closet. There's no other way out. If someone does find you, the outcomes can be very negative. Additionally, you have to start thinking about when you hide out, common sense things that we don't take into consideration. Like if we're going to be hiding, we have to be a good hider. That means being quiet. That means silencing your electronic devices. That means being aware of your breathing. That means either cutting lights out, closing windows, moving away from windows and doors, making yourself as small as possible. The third way they talk about in contingency plans are actually cooperating. There might be a situation where you're engaged in an incident where you're not going to be able to evacuate, you're not going to be able to hide, and you're thrust in the middle of something that you can't get away from. The best way is cooperation. The best thing to do in cooperation is using your emotional intelligence against an already very aggravated, heightened individual. That could be something as simple as changing your tone, your pitch, being very clear. If someone says, I want your purse, instead of being more agitated and meeting their aggression with aggression, talking to them very calmly and saying, I understand you said you want my purse, and making the actual furtive movement to give them the purse, but all in a very cool, calm, and collected way where it does not seem like you're being aggressive in what's taking place. Cooperation also goes into physical cooperation and verbal cooperation. I want to be very, very clear to you all and say that when we use the word cooperation, there's a parenthesis with an asterisk that says never, ever, ever in the situation, whether it be a robbery, go with a robber, get into a car where you feel like you're going to be kidnapped. Throughout history, the empirical data has shown that a person, when moved from one location to another location while being accosted or being robbed, the outcomes are usually very, very low for a positive outcome. So you must think about that in terms of what's being asked of you, what you're willing to do, and then lastly, what your appetite is in terms of the last component, which is take action. And when I say take action can be physically resisting. Taking action can be verbally resisting. Taking action could actually be that I'm going to use everything that I have in terms of a pen, my purse, or whatever, to be able to fight people off. The parentheses and asterisk on taking action is very, very important to remember that you should never take action if you don't feel that you can follow through with those actions. You cannot engage in activity or taking action and have no intent to follow through. It will not end well. So going back over the 4 components, again, evacuate, hide out when you can, cooperate when you can, and as a last resort, take action. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about those 4 components? I know, Christy, you asked a question and hopefully I kind of addressed that.
About the purse thing. If you say, if somebody comes in open house and wants to steal our purse, is it wise to keep our keys separate from our purse? So you give them the purse, but they don't get the car?
Absolutely. And in fact, I'm a strong believer in you should really probably take everything that you need out of your purse, whether it be your phone, any other items that you may need throughout the day. There's no reason to have a purse. There's no reason to have your purse in the open house. Just get the items that you need out of the purse and secure the purse in your trunk prior to you even getting to the open house. I know a lot of you like to take your purses in, and I've seen realtors oftentimes put the purses in kitchen cabinets or in credenzas or, on a shelf in the closet. All you're doing is increasing the likeliness of someone finding the purse, especially during busy open houses. You're trying to do your due diligence. You're trying to be accommodating, answering many questions. And at times you can have 4, 5, even 10 people in the house. So let's minimize the opportunity for someone to take things from us. In the event that someone does come in to rob us, we don't have a purse.
What I do at home if David's out of town is I keep my car keys next to the nightstand. So if there's something, I hear something, it'd be scary. I've never had to do this, but I can turn the alarm on to my car in the middle of the night, and I'm sure the neighbors will wake up and be helpful.
Yes, I think that's a great idea and a great plan. With that said, Tammy made a great comment. I think that was Tammy talking, a great comment about making sure doing the alarm. This is something you need to think about and practice. Like for instance, many times we get comfortable, we come in and we might throw the keys on the living room table or right at the garage door entry. Throughout the middle of the night, you're looking for your keys because you want to activate your alarm. Murphy's Law, the keys are not where they need to be. Secondly, you need to practice how you play. So for instance, you're going to be in your bedroom and you want to activate the alarm. Does your alarm remote actually connect to the car from your bedroom location? So these are kind of things that we need to think about and more importantly, apply and practice when we're doing it. Please, you guys, any other comments? You guys have great questions and great comments.
I have another question or comment. I just discovered on my phone a security feature that if I click the power button 3 times, I can set up to send a text automatically to a number designated. And I read online, I haven't done it yet, but I read online that it can also activate the police. Have you heard of that? If so, is it used and how quickly would it be responded to?
No, I have not heard of that. I'll defer to others who might be way more technologically advanced than me. I got to bring my kids into the room and ask them how to maximize or minimize my computer screen. So you're asking the wrong person. Does anybody have any experience or any knowledge of that? Well, I will do, I'll definitely research that and I'll get an answer back to Jordan before the day is up and he can send it out to the group to make sure we have some follow-up on that. I don't like having loops that aren't closed. So we're more than happy to.
Thank you. And Jordan, and actually I have an Android, an older Android. So if you're, if that helps in like doing some research.
So this is Helen Nicholas piping up. Can I pipe? Hi, Ersie.
Hey, Helen.
Hey, what I am attempting to do is always have a second realtor with me at a Sunday open house, not so much on broker tour. And most of the time that works. Maybe that's just gives me more confidence and we would both get bonked over the head. The rare times when I haven't been able to get a second party recently is I try to get the seller to give me the name and number of a nearby neighbor who's trustworthy. And I contact them ahead of time and say, hey, I'm going to be there by myself. If you see my car still out front, would you mind looking shortly after 4:30? And, basically come check on me if the car is still there. So just a tip.
Helen, thank you for that. That's an excellent tip. And it goes right back to my adult learning. Someone could come and make a presentation for you for an hour, but we are going to learn a lot more when we start tapping into the 46 people who are participants in this call. Nothing trumps life experience. I saw Judy Richardson, you have your hand up for comment.
Actually, Arlene had her hand up first too.
Okay.
All right. I defer to Arlene. That's fine.
Thank you. Hi, Ersie. Great to see you. I just wanted to ask about a device called a Birdie. A group of us at Red Oak, women, ordered them, and I've given several of them as presents to other women who I love and want to help. What is your sense of the effectiveness of something? If I were to activate this, if there were somebody who came into an open house how effective is that likely to be?
What is that exactly? I've never seen one of those.
It's a very
Educate.
loud alarm. So it's something that if we were to pull the top off, it generates it's just audible, it's just screeches, but obviously it would get other people's attention. I've never activated it. I hope I never have to, but I keep it with me in my handbag all the time.
Well, first and foremost, I really, Arlene, I take my hat off to you and commend you for being proactive in your safety. And more importantly, I just kind of want to lift up the fact that you see something that you needed to do to make yourself feel comfortable, and then you shared it with others. I think that's a missing component that's happening in our society right now. We just also need to look out for others. In terms of the screeching device, I'm a huge believer in given the right situation, drawing attention. Again, just keep in mind, as a backdrop, we want to consciously be aware that, hey, I'm gonna train my brain to use this when I need it. Like, for instance, I don't wanna go start hiding and then I just start getting fearful and I pull my cord. So it's just kind of things to start thinking about. Additionally, always never take one tool and get so comfortable that's gonna be your panacea. In terms of figuring things out. Like, I'm a firm believer in society, we have become so busy and so self-centered in terms of what we're trying to accomplish that we no longer even pay attention to car audio alarms. We hear alarms going off all the time. I don't even turn my head. So have a game plan in terms of what you want to do. And going back to what I always say, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And we have to start thinking about what we're going to do to put ourselves in the best position to win.
I just want to follow up. I was in a situation where there was someone was stealing. When I used to run an institute, and someone was stealing books from us, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to hit 911 on my phone. Under that kind of stress, when you're in a situation that you're not used to, where something terrible is happening, I, honest to God, could not manage to get the number up and press the button. You think, oh, this is so easy. When you're not under stress, no problem. But under those circumstances, it was unbelievably difficult. So I think, to your point, we kind of have to practice these things. It's not enough just to have a device or have a plan in your brain. You actually have to have physically gone through, as close as pushing the 911, but have it in a place, have it so it's so easily accessible on your phone that you could actually take advantage of it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
Ersie, it's Judy. I guess I'll pop in next. First off, thanks again for taking the time and being on this Zoom call. But I have heard some unnerving news, like people having their windows broken to grab someone's purse when they're in their car, or their cell phone taken out of their hand when they're at a stoplight. I mean, I guess this is all just, it's crazy to me, like, especially when it happens in downtown Montclair. And so I guess we should stop using purses. I don't know. It seems to be that purses are grabbed on the street. They're grabbed in our cars. They're grabbed. I don't know. I have actually started wearing like a little, cross bag when I'm at open houses. It's something that I have had for about 6 months now. And so it's not like an actual purse, but it's something smaller that fits my phone and my keys. And I just leave my purse at home if I'm doing an open house. So I just wanted you to speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's contextualize what takes place. You have usually 3 to 4 guys who are riding around in a car. You have a driver, you're gonna have 3 guys jump out the car, and they're gonna do what they're gonna do, whether it be a street robbery, a car break-in, a purse snatch. So what they're doing is they're driving around and they're looking for people who are not engaged, for people who are on their phones, not paying attention to their surroundings. But more importantly, they're looking for victims who fit the criteria that they're looking for. And, you know, the elephant in the room, I'll tell you right now, from my 33 decades of law enforcement, interviewing many suspects who were involved in home invasion robberies, when I asked them why they picked the homes that they picked, they had some of them racist-based ideas. For instance, they oftentimes said that they would pick on individuals who did not look like they spoke English well on the streets because they knew their chances of being ID'd was a lot less. Secondarily, as they drove around looking for homes to break into, the first inclinations, they looked for homes that had a lot of boxes on the porch where they had deliveries. That would be an easy get. They looked for homes that had shoes on the front porch, meaning that it probably belonged to a person from an Asian descent who did not wear their shoes on the inside. They looked for little things hanging at the front door that would also depict a different racial background. And these are all common things that people are looking for. As they're driving around, they're looking for individuals who might have flashy jewelry, who might be dressed well, who might have a nice watch on, individuals who are, like I said before earlier, looking down at their phones or just not engaged in their surroundings because they think the likeliness of getting what they want and getting away with it is very high. In terms of one of the questions, you know, walking around with a purse. When you walk around with a purse and you're aware of what's going on, you're holding your purse close to your body, it's clutched, you have the strap in a cross-body way. They look at that as like, that's gonna be a little bit more difficult to remove that purse. As that person is more aware of their surroundings, so this might not be the victim we want. They want a victim that they feel that they're going to get the most bang for their buck with the least amount of resistance. So these are just all kind of things to start thinking about in terms of victimization and being aware. I can tell you that the common MO right now for car break-ins, for burglars, for robbers, they're driving cars that they go and they have all the windows tinted, including the front windshield. And then they remove the plates and they have no plates on the car. This, what they believe, is an opportunity to decrease the likeliness of being identified or being caught. Many times these cars don't belong to them. They're stolen cars. They're cars that they're borrowed from other people. And it has been a common trend. I challenge you all in your day-to-day operations, you're driving around, start looking for that. They're going to be usually foreign type of cars, tinted windows with every window, including the windshield, tinted around it. And then lastly, no license plate, either no plate at all or a beat up car with a new dealer plate on it. If you see a car like that in your surrounding, find a new parking space, find a new bank, or come back to that grocery store later. I see, and Jordan, I just see a couple hands popped up. So I know you're keeping track of who's who first. So I'll defer to you to call on the next person.
Yeah, I think Lynn might have been next and then Ann.
Thanks, Jordan. So I have two question, and then one to add on what you just said. You said I myself have witnessed where it's a newer car with a loose hanging license plate, meaning they've stolen license plates from other cars and put it on that car. So if you see one where it's kind of loose, that it kind of, because they're basically putting them on and taking them off, so they don't go through all the trouble of making sure it's secure. So if you see one flapping or loose, that's also a red flag. But my question is, one is, I think you started, maybe have talked about it, but I kind of had some technical difficulties, so I missed it. But what are acceptable defenses? Meaning, someone mentioned, like, can I tase someone? If you're in a house and that person, or anywhere for that matter, and that person, a person is coming in to break in or they attack you, if they proceed to leave the premises and leave you, I know, and some people have that, you know, mentality of like defend, and once your adrenaline's going, you're probably maybe trying to get the guy back or attack the person back. Like, what is acceptable in the legal way to defend yourself once they proceed to leave you?
Number one, you always have to think about what you're doing and where you are. The law is very clear that if someone is in your house, you have the right to defend your safety, your home. using any force necessary up to deadly. If when you start talking about someone's leaving you, it's the totality of the situation. Their physical act of leaving, coupled with what the actions are, what's being said, what's transpired, will all dictate in terms of if something will be viewed as justified or unjustified in the eyes of the district attorney. Again, you know, deciding on what you want to do in terms of taking action and the type of action you take. Again, everyone has a different appetite for that, but it's very, very important that you come to terms and understanding of what you're doing. Because as I believe it was Arlene who talked about before, when things start happening, you don't know what you're going to do until you're in that situation. So again, there is no infinite simplistic answer to where the line is drawn. It's the totality of the situation in terms of the force that's used versus what's actually taking place that rules something justified or unjustified.
And
Okay,
Daryl
and
Glass,
my
mute
last
himself, please. Daryl Glass, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you.
Or Lynn, if you wouldn't mind, thanks.
And my last question, someone mentioned about asking their sellers for, you know, trustworthy neighbors and surrounding. And I'm just kind of, I've seen on the news in situations where actual agents have been reported as thieves and things like that when they're approaching properties. So I'm just wondering, is that something that people should practice, or some sort of, you know, letting their surrounding neighbors know, like, hey, I have my you know, introducing them to their agent. So that way, if they see that person in the neighborhood, they're not calling the police, or, you know, even approaching them themselves thinking that they could possibly be a robber. Just being aware that it's happening, because I've seen it. I feel like it was on the news not too long ago where an actual agent was showing a property and was actually arrested because someone reported him as a thief.
Lynn, I think that's a great point. And what I want to lift up and highlight from what you just said, for me, it's very simple. I see 3 different trajectories in a positive way on why exactly you would want to do that. Number one, it's an opportunity for you to increase your safety and your actual footprint in the community in terms of where you're going to be to have a force multiplier with individuals in the community. Secondly, I see it as an opportunity for extended marketing and your business footprint in terms of letting people know who you are, what you're doing. You might not recognize that you just doing something as simple as that could be furthering your business later on down the road. And then lastly, the most important, most common sense aspect is, again, the lost art that we have in society. We don't really spend time to communicate and get to know people, especially if they're people who don't act, look, or talk like us. I'm a firm believer in people oftentimes surround themselves with people who think like them because that's comfortable. People surround themselves with people who think differently for growth. And we all should be striving every day to grow.
Go ahead, Ann.
Thanks. If I could follow up a little bit on what Judy said, several weeks ago, there was a series of smash and grabs in Montclair, broad daylight, several cars, at least one realtor was involved at the post office. One of the things that a group of us talked about afterwards, and I've certainly been trying to do this, and it's not so much open houses, but all the time, is I do have a small crossbody I have been wearing basically since the pandemic started. And I put it now between my left foot and the driver's door in my car when I remember to do that, because it's out of the way, it's not on the seat, and it's just not visible to anybody who might be looking to break the window of my car or whatever. So just, you know, thought to try to do something like that. And I think Judy's idea of that little crossbody little bag is also a great idea, because I was trying to think, how many pockets can I possibly wear to an open house to have my phone and my keys in? So just a comment to people.
Excellent comment.
See, I have a question. I saw on Nixle that OPD has that Operation Crime Seize, I think it is. And they actually got a bunch of guys over in West Oakland that actually rammed the patrol car. And they busted several guys who are breaking and stealing these purses and in the cars and things like that. Are they making a dent in the huge amount of crime we're having in Oakland? Please say yes.
Yes. Next question. No, but to expound on that, Tammy, it's not as simple as that. And let me explain just my professional and now my civilian perspective. What ends up happening is that individuals who are criminals, just as you all grow, develop, and foster your businesses, these criminals are doing the same thing. When I first started in 1991, the mode of making money in Oakland was selling drugs. The federal government came in with a war on drugs, having a very small amount of cocaine, got you many, many years in federal prison. Guys evolved. They're like chameleons. They, you know what? We're gonna move to fake money and fraud and, credit card fraud, real estate fraud. That burnt itself out with chip card readers. They start putting strips on money. That moved away. The next influx in my career, they moved to human trafficking. There's a lot of money that individuals were making off of human trafficking. The government came down real hard. You actually get more time today for being a person involved in human trafficking than you do for murdering someone. There's no other issues where judges can give you lenient sentences. It's a mandatory minimum when you're involved in human trafficking. So that ran its course. Now, the thing that the individuals want to do is what's called crime has no time. There's been some bills passed in recent years where stealing from the stores, they've raised the value in terms of when it's a felony, when it's a misdemeanor. The eye of the perfect storm with COVID, they weren't able to hold people incarcerated. Towards the end of my career and at the end of 2019, 2020, 2021, individuals could be arrested with a gun. They were released that same day. There's different bills that have passed on the no bail system. And clearly there was an issue or a problem with people who were rich being able to easily bail out, people who did not have financial support being stuck in jail. They made some adjustments to that, but there's been some blowback for that. So to answer your question in terms of what police are doing, it doesn't matter how many people they arrest. I'm a firm believer in you cannot arrest your way out of a problem. You can't just keep putting people in jail. One, is just not the correct thing to do ethically, in my opinion. Secondly, with the current laws that are in place, they're not going to hold. I tell people all the time, people ask me about guns and what my opinions are on gun laws. And I can tell you that my opinion is that Congress, elected officials have never been serious about reducing gun violence or reducing the actual footprints of guns. If they were, in California, you should not be able to walk around with a fully loaded Glock stuck in your pants with 17 rounds, and that's a misdemeanor. But the same person walking around with a pair of brass knuckles, with a metal pipe with a switchblade, that's a felony. So again, until we address those discrepancies, individuals are constantly going to be doing what they're doing. I ran many, many wiretaps, and I can tell you that the criminals all know this. They talk about them in the jail calls, that when they go to jail for doing multiple home invasions where no one's home, they're breaking into cars, property crimes, carries no time, and they know that they're going to get out. So again, trying to be positive. Yes, the system is trying to do all it can do, but to be honest and realistic, this is not going to slow down or change until there's an accountability metric that's adjusted.
Yeah, I'm saying accountability also. It just seems like I talked to an Uber driver and he brought up an interesting point. He said to me, he goes, did you notice that Oakland, that crime, not just Oakland, went up exponentially after September 4th when the government free money was handed out after the pandemic? And he said he's just noticed a lot of crime go up since that point. And I thought that was an interesting correlation. Do you agree with that?
I'm a firm believer. I believe in data. I have not seen those reports, not to say they don't exist, but I just don't engage in hyperbole or people's conversations, especially when they don't know the nuances or know what's going on. Now, again, I don't have any data to show that that's not true, but in my 30 years and I'm a consultant in Indianapolis, Baltimore, Mexico City, Stockton, Southern California, and I've not seen that trend anywhere in the country so far with any of the crime and data that I've seen. Again, it's definitely something that people should look into and be concerned about, but that has not been true for me in my experience. Any other questions? I want to thank you all for the time today. Again, this is a conversation that needs to be had on a repeated basis, not just one time and we forget about it. Complacency can be very bad. I'm going to share a quick story with you all. My dad and my mom both grew up in Sobrani Park, 504 Capistrano, and my mom lived on the street right behind. And I can tell you when I was growing up, all the kids in that community were all told, hey, go to school, make something of yourself so you can get out of this community. My parents are a little bit different. They always told me, go to school, make something of yourself so you can bring something back to this community. I challenge all of you who are on this call, bring something back to this city. Oakland needs all of you. I know everyone's appetite's different for their engagement and involvement, but there's something that all 45 of us can do to, number one, make sure we're all safe, and number two, make sure that people who are around us, who we know and don't know, are safe as well. God bless you all, be safe, and let's get some more escrows done because you all are single-handedly keeping the city of Oakland financially solvent with this real estate transfer taxes here. So thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service to the community.
My pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks everyone for participating. What a great conversation.
Don't get near me with my stun gun, Jordan.
Definitely not.
Big.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks,
Yeah,
Ersie.
thank you all for coming. I feel like we had a
Yes.
really great turnout. Enjoy your
Big shout out to Jordan.
Yeah, that was great.
You take care of us, Jordan. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.
Elizabeth, that was a brilliant idea about calling about the pizza.
Yeah, of course it happened after the fact. I was terrified in an open house one day and I was like, oh shit, I need to deal with this.
Yeah.
But
it made me hungry.
But Ersie's right. I mean, that happened like 4 years ago and I haven't talked to Nigel about it since. So if I called him for a pizza now, he'd probably order a pizza. So I hadn't even thought about